Thank you for joining me today. I acquired these chairs. I'm not sure if I need to replace the foam yet. I won't know until I get inside. I do obviously need to redo the cover, so let's get on with it. The first thing I need to do is to remove the back. That's kind of stuck on there. I'll do that to both chairs. I'm going to just undo all of these screws and then I'll put them into a small bag so I can't lose them. I have a habit of losing all sorts of things. I'll remove the centerpiece because that's quite heavy. And then I'll undo the seat. Move the chair seat down and out. When I picked them up, it was absolutely pouring with rain, and you can see that the base is rather spongy. So I'm going to take one of these off so that I can use the base as a pattern, and I'm going to get my friend up the road to cut me 2 more bases exactly the same shape and size, because these will need to be replaced. All of these wheels move, which is good. They are all in need of a little bit of TLC. I'm going to take some water and just smooth off any dust and any loose rust that might be there. Do that to all of them, including the sides here and the top there. I'll do that with all of these. Then I'm going to use some rust dissolver and liberally paint that over these wheel covers on the top here, and also around here and around here, just to make sure that everything is covered that has the rust on it. I'll do that with all 4 of these wheels. I had my friend cut out new ones of these, and because I made them a slightly different shape, I drew around this as a template to get a new shape for the seat cushion. I don't think it's actually that much different from the original, which I cut 2. So I've got 2 seat cushions. I'm going to cut some piping up at 1.5 inches on the diagonal, just a few lengths, and I'll make up what I need for each part. I've already got some piping going. I'm going to slot that underneath to start off with, just like that. Pop this here at right angles like that, and go from one side to the other, just like I usually do. And then I'll fold that over and join it, and I'll do this all the way to the end of these few pieces. I'd much rather try to keep it in line with that. I'm going to add this to the existing length that I have. Open the seam up, fold that over, and start about 1 inch back from where I'd finished sewing. Just sew that into position. Make sure everything's nice and tight when you go over any joins. I'm just going to work towards the end of what I've attached. I'm going to start at the back of here, pop that underneath, and a little ways down, because I don't want to be too close to where I might be joining it. Actually, I'll take it a little bit further in than that. And now I'm going to sew it into position. Because it's on the bias, I shouldn't actually need to cut into it until I get to the corner at the base there. It should go in nicely. Straighten that out. And I come into this curve here. I think I'll be able to round it without cutting into it at all, which is rather good. And along the front of the chair seat. I'm going to do the same on the top of this second seat cushion, and also on the front of both of the back seat cushions as well. And then to the back where I started. I'm not going to take it all the way up to here. I'll take it a few more stitches. Because I've got a join here anyway, I'm actually going to take it, you know what, that's really irritating because that joint is right where I need it. I'm going to overlap it quite a bit to here, and I might have to make a separate join within 1 inch of there. I don't like doing that because it's a weakness, but it works. For the join, open that up. That actually comes all the way around there. I'm going to open this up a little bit because I need to open the flange out to join it to the other side. I've just cut this side back parallel to the stripe that's there, and discovered I haven't quite cut back far enough. That's okay, move that out of the way. Fold this back and over like it's going over a piece of piping, and then I can see how far back this goes. I need to cut at least 1 inch over, so I'm going to take it to here, which is about there. Again, I'm going to use the stripes to cut my flange back. And I think that was a little bit too generous, but I don't want to be going too far back there, so I'm actually going to cut some of this off It's awkward. If your fabric is too long, you often don't get the right positioning. Nick in there. If I line that up, is around about here. Double check once you've worked out where everything goes. It's got a crossover. It's about ½ an inch over, so 1/4 of an inch halfway through will be where my seam line goes. So I'm going to pop that in first. I'm going to take that back too. If you can't open the fabric enough for your seams, always cut a little bit further back, because if it's all twisted, it means it won't go in nicely. Fold my fabric back and then pop that underneath here. Make sure the seams are even. I need to go back a little bit more on that one. There we go. Shorten your stitch and sew with both raw edges together. There we go. I'm going to see if that works. I think it will. I think it might be a little bit generous. Because it's on a curve, it's always awkward to tell, because the inside of the curve is a lot smaller than the outside. Yeah, that's perfect. So folded the seat cushion back, pop that underneath and push that into place like that and sew it together. I prefer to bring my piping down over the join, then cut a little bit further, I think. There we go. So that's actually right over the join. Sew in a little bit further to make sure it's secure. Like that. And then I'm going to take this one back to it and cut it there. There's quite a bit of wastage, but I can always use that later on if I need to. You'll be surprised at how many times you need a small piece of piping for something. Join the two pieces up together like that, and then continue sewing into place. And then top sew it into place around the back of the chair seat, and it should go in perfectly. I'll also do this to the fronts of the back seat cushions. I have a little bit of a problem. I cut both pieces for the fronts using this top, which is fine for here and here, but it's really quite a bit out here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop that down to there. It means this blue is slightly lower than I would like. If I brought the blue into line here, then I'm going to have a little bit of brown showing, which doesn't show on the other chair. Well, that's okay. I could just pull it in that wee tad further in and it will be fine. So I'm going to use this as my line, bring that along here like that, and I will be cutting off to here, which means I'm going to go all the way along here, cutting just that much off so that I can even it out when I put the new border in on the second chair. Sometimes you have to be a little bit creative to get things to work, and I didn't really want to waste that much of a pattern repeat just to get the borders in line. But I think doing it this way will be just perfect. I've just lined all of the stripes up for the side border. I only need a small patch. One width isn't quite big enough. I'll go forward and back, and then all the way across to the other side, keeping the border as even as possible at the side. There we go. And then back and forward here. That should go in quite nicely. It looks like it matches. It's all around the back, so if it doesn't quite match up, it'll be fine. Here's the band for the seat cushion, which I'm going to line up there. Pop that on top like that, and I'll just bring it a little bit further around. It should be almost halfway across the back. It doesn't really matter. It's the back of the seat cushion. Pop that down, and I'm going to sew this all into position as I go around. Should have about ½ an inch seam allowance. Because it's curved, I'm going to roll the seat piping onto the border. Always try to keep the border straight if you've got a curved seat cushion going in. I'm just going to carry it on going around. Now, it might be that this doesn't look quite the same on both chairs, but it's going to be close enough it's not going to notice too much. Just make sure it's even as you go. Any loose threads, make sure that they're coming towards where the seam is, and then you'll have less loose threads to cut back when it's finished. Some always slip by the way. When you come to where the join is, open the seam so it's nice and flat, and then work your way up so it gets sewn into place. There we go. That'll stay open now. And when you come in towards the join at the back, take it a little bit closer. Not too close, because you want to be able to fold it and put a seam in. Now for the centre join at the back, straighten that out like that and cut across here. So I've got plenty of room to mess with. Cut across here in a straight line. And again, I'm going to bring it over, line the outside of that and the outside of that up together like that, and put a pin in to hold it like that. Pull all of that over, keep this really tight at the top, pop that under, and it looks like where the pin goes is where my needle is, and I'm going to keep the side of the foot running along here and keep all of that in line. It should go in quite straight. Forward and back, and then forward all the way across and back and forward. I can cut this seam back just a little bit because there's still going to be ½ an inch there. I've opened the seam back here. That's back far enough so it will over sew the stitching there. Make sure that that's still open and sew into place. There we go, down and then across here and over the stitching, which just a few more stitches and it's in place. So I've got 2 seams in the back. I will check to make sure that I am tight in there with my stitching. There's a couple of threads that need to be pulled out, but it looks like I've got it where it needs to be. Always double check. It's nothing worse than looking at your seam when it's in situ and think to yourself, I could have done that better. So as I say, always double check before you finish, because I can always nip round and take anything in a little bit further if need be, but I think that's perfect. I've got my seat on top of the foam. This is the super soft, and I'll do the same with the extra foam. I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to draw at an angle like that around. I don't want the foam to be exactly the same size as the seat. I want the foam to kind of crunch in a little bit and give a bit more resistance along the side. Try to keep it even. I've got my electric carving knife, which is really the best way of dealing with this. And the whole idea is you keep your knife at right angles as you cut around the shaping. And the best way is to have the support underneath your foam. And then when you push down, it won't push too far down and should keep the sides vertical. It's rather noisy. I'm going to get that done. This is the extra foam. The advantage of 1-inch foam is you can use your scissors and cut it. There's my super soft. Here's my firm foam going on top. Then my base. I did hammer these in. The last one I put together, one of these came out. So I think what I'm going to do before I secure those properly is each one of these I'm going to screw in and pull it against the board on the other side so it's nice and firm. Let's see if that looks better. I don't know, I don't think it does. It might work. They just seem to be a little bit proud, which I'm not happy about, but I can only hammer these in so far. I'll just have to risk it. If any one doesn't work, I literally put a screw next to it and it'll be fine. I'm now putting the Dacron wrap over it. I bring it down to the table as a general rule on all sides and cut. Because then I know that when I've pulled the Dacron into place, it will go underneath the wooden seat. I'll cut that all the way around, level with the table. The cover is slightly smaller than the foam and all that Dacron. Even it up at the front where it goes round, and this is at the back. Then I'm going to push the sides of the cover down over the foam and into place. It's easier to do it this way than trying to pull it with the sides already down. It takes a little while to ease everything into place. Sometimes it rucks up again and you have to start again, and that's fine too. Now I'm going to tip it all over. I'm going to make sure the seat is basically centered in the foam, then bring it up. You can see it's all wrinkled. That's how it's meant to be. That's a little bit tight, but I think once that's all pulled in, it'll be fine. Make sure that all the sides seem to be evenly pulled up. First thing I'm going to do is cut back some of this, not the fabric on the front. If I do that, I won't have enough fabric. If it's short in places, don't worry about it because it will pull the Dacron in as the top cover is pulled into place. Do your north, south, east and west. I'm going to pull that down to that line and staple it. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be pulled in. Then the sides. I'm going to make sure that that line here is on the edge of the chair base so it stays even. Then I'll work my way around all sides. When you've got the bottom cloth on, cut out where the bolts should go in for the base. Makes it a lot easier to put them in because they've got a dull edge to them, so they won't pierce their way in. There's one, perfect. Once I've found it, I'll cut it. I did actually use the rust remover on the back here just to help clean it up a little bit. Then I'm going to slot the base in first. I'll maneuver it so I can find where this bolt and this bolt go into and secure the bolts here before I secure the 2 screws here and then the base onto it, so it's all one unit. You don't want to put the base on and then into the chair because it'll be too heavy to do it that way round. Always be sensible. I've managed to start the screws off. I really want that pushed hard back. Use this to screw the rest in. Now I'll put the screws in here, and then the base on, so that's nice and secure. There's a metal rod that goes between the 2 buttons, so I'm having to cut round each one like this. Make sure that they're all free, like that. And then I'm going to pull the foam out, put it inside out. I'm going to start undoing the seams because I want all of this in parts. It'll take a little while to go all the way around. And you need to undo one of the covers so that I've got the right pattern for 2 backs. On here, there's tabs. I'm going to mark like that and that for either side, and then I'll carry on going round. I need one of these to copy. There's various marks. Now I'm putting the marks onto the front piece because that's where I'm going to attach them first before I attach the back. I will pre-mark the second one here. Something I have noticed is this only has a 1/4 inch seam, not 1/2 inch, so I will need to adjust the seam allowance. Sometimes they only put marks on one side, not both sides of the fabric. I've been looking at this and I feel that it's not as even as I would like it. Fold this in half. I've noticed that although it's level on this side, it's uneven across the bottom here. I can even it up slightly there. So I'm going to cut this one in half like this rounded side, but I do want it to be lower. If I go there to there, it comes up to here. I'm going to cut along here to start off with. Now this is quite a fine fabric, but having said that, it is an upholstery fabric. It has been treated on the back with fire retardancy, so when you turn it over you can see it's actually quite a bit darker than the right side. Hold that like that, hold that there. This was the side that came down the furthest. Even that out slightly so it's not so angled. Then take that down and around. Move that one, put this one into position and bring it up just slightly. It's not very much further up, it's about 1/4 inch. Push that out to there and then cut on to the top. I'm going to line the stripes up like that and then cut around again for the second cover, and I'll repeat this for the 2 back pieces that I need. I am going to cut lengths at 3.5 wide by 6 inches long. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit longer because I'll be cutting them down anyway. These are for the tabs that go around the side of the cushion back. It's the good side, this is the bad side because it's slightly darker. Fold that over like that and bring this over slightly. That's wrong, I'm going to have to do it this way, sorry. I'm just trying to think which side the stitch goes. Make sure that that is 1.25 inches. Pop this underneath and I'm going to do a straight stitch with a zigzag over the raw edge just to hold it. Measure, make sure everything's still in line, and again it's a little bit time consuming. Now this is the raw side and that's the good side, and you really can't see that I've put any stitching on, which is what I want it to look like. Now I'm going to continue with the rest. I am going to have the pattern going the same way as is on the cushion. This is the front and the back, and I'm going to line it up with the markings. Pin that one there, then go on to the next spot. Again, I'm going to have it going the way the pattern goes. I think I made these a little bit narrower than the original. I'm going to work my way around this back and the other one. These are the initial ones I'm going to put in. I'm going to complete all the joins like I showed you on the seat cushion. I've got the tab in place. Pop that down on top of the tab. That's so that when you start sewing you can't push the tab forward and out of place. So of course, remove the pin. As for the 4 tabs that go onto the back, I really don't care which way they go up. Right side out, pop that on top of the existing tab, lift the foot up, put it down and sew into place, and do that on all the tabs and sew. The outside back needs to have a hem on it, so I'm going to fold that up to there, pop that down and sew it across as evenly as possible. Don't pull it, just hold it in place and it should go in nice and evenly. These two shaped pieces here, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to cut them down a little bit and then put a hem across the top of both of them. I've got the seam here and the seam there, and I locked them together like that so it's nice and flat all the way across. I've evened the sides and I am just going to cut up here like that, and it should be even to the one underneath. I'm going to do the same on the other end, make sure that's over like that and cut down. I'm not 100% sure whether this is where it's going to be. It might go up a little bit, which is why I'm not going to secure the sides. The top back is going to go in first. I'm going to center this like that. I'm lining up my centre mark here with the centre mark there. I'm going to start at the centre because I'm really not sure where the end of this is going to end up. Following the outside edge here, four edges together, I'm going to pull the top, not very hard, just sort of guide it down onto the lower piece like this and over those tabs and on round. Now I don't want to pull this because it will stretch. I just want to keep that as straight as I can underneath. The one on top has already been sewn, so it's not going to stretch very much at all. Line it up and sew and on into place. Over the tabs again, right off the end. I know now that this here comes in line with that line there. So when I start on this side, I'm going to line it up with that line, pop it under the foot, and again sew it all into position. That should come in really well and evenly. Wriggle it if you need to over the tabs and allow it to sew into place and over the original stitching. All I've got to do is get the bottom part in. Here again, I'm going to fold that over and find the centre and mark it. The reason being is I really don't know where this is going to finish on here. Right sides together, pop that centre to centre here, like that, underneath the foot. Although on this one I am going to pull it slightly because the bottom is slightly wider than the top. I don't want to pull it too much because obviously the hem here is the same width as there, so that actually has to go in evenly. I will pull it and I'll see how that goes in. Straighten it out like that. And then bring it in so that the seams are crossed over like that, which is how I cut it. And join them. I'm actually going to go over here so it's a really good join. Now on this side, pop the seam against the seam like that and sew from well over the tab to that position like this. Make sure that that seam stays in position there. I've got all of this to get in, so I've got to be a little bit creative. Pull that down and into the corner so it goes round, and then I've got all of this to pull in, so I'm going to start pulling it in now. It's not that much to be taken in, but there's just enough that it could be a problem. There we go. So that's nice and even to here, and I'll just carry on sewing another inch over where I started. And I will repeat this on the second back cushion. Turn this the other way around and you'll see that the small piece tucks in behind the larger piece here like a pillowcase. Now what I'm going to do is pull over about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch and put one side of the Velcro on. Now that I've got the made up cushion, I'm going to draw around the piping like this, cut around the shape of the new cushion like this. And I am going to roll this around and sew it in place. This is used for quilting, so it's not very thick batting. I don't really want thick batting on here. I do want to be able to slip the foam into place without it catching on the fabric. I'm just going to sew along this outer edge to the other side. Just roll it in put it in there. If it's a little bit proud from the foam, it doesn't matter, because the way the cushion is, it should fill it out quite nicely. I've put the foam into this and pushed it all the way to the back. Now, because the cushion inside is slightly bigger than the exterior, I will be allowing it to go in slightly looser at the bottom. Ideally, I should fold that over so that the hems on top and bottom are next to each other, but I'm actually going to lay one on top of the other. Once this is sewn in, I can maneuver the insert into place. Pull it in to its furthest, and then I will release it as I go. On the other one, I found that if I allowed this to pop out slightly, the corners filled a little bit better with the foam. I'm going to do the same again. So although it was crossed over here, I think it was 2.5 inches out that I allowed this sew line to come in evenly. Once I get to 2.5 inches here, I'll bring this all in and I'll move those over. I've measured from here to here, which is where I'm going to angle everything in. Come up under here like this, close to the piping but not too close. Keep that in a straight line, go into the fabric on the other side and then into the fold of the fabric on the top. Make sure that each stitch is about 1/4 inch. You don't want it too long, otherwise it will gape. You want each stitch to go in exactly opposite the one that came out, like that. Once I get it to the point where it levels out, I will just evenly stitch across the back, then measure in from the other side to make sure that the other side is equally as even as this. It's a lot easier once you are following the threads or a stripe. Pull all of that tight. You see it pulls in and wrinkles slightly, that's fine. You can do up to 6 stitches without it being too difficult to pull through. And I'm not going through too far, I'm just going through the top layer of the fabric. It might catch some of the Dacron underneath, but it shouldn't catch too much. And now all I've got to do is straighten it out across here, which is the easiest part. Always be prepared to undo your work. Having installed the foam, the way this sits in the back of the seat has actually changed. I thought it would, but until you've got everything constructed, it's rather awkward to work out. I could have put the foam in and then tried it, but then you've got the weight of the item and I'm on my own. It's not like I've got anybody else helping me today. I'm just going to undo these. Take, I think it's 1/2 inch off, so roll it back and that will be plenty long enough, but I'll have the measurement from here to the top for the next one, so I won't get it wrong twice. It's a quick mend, it's nothing really bad. Thank you for joining me on this project. I think the chairs have turned out really pretty. I could put buttons in and then that would pull some of this wrinkling out. I'm finding getting decent buttons for projects really difficult. It will settle down eventually as people use it. It will just push back. It will be. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be absolutely brilliant. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao.